I'm not even going to go into that. I am so not going into that, and you can leave that in the show, Val.
All right.
It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to 5. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Welcome to episode 191 of the Wine to 5 podcast, and hello, December.
And hello, Val.
Hey, Steph.
This is a really good time of the year, I think. You know, I put some cinnamon spice and stuff in my house, and I'm enjoying the almost December, because right now we're recording it November 27th.
That's right. Our neighbors have their Christmas lights up across the way. They had somebody do it, and they've got the tree, and it's really beautiful, and not in like a Griswold way, but a really classy way. And I thought, we have this giant dumpster in front of our house because of the remodel. Maybe we should put a wreath on it.
I think you totally should. That would be so hilarious. I bet your neighbors would think that you have such a good sense of humor. Of course, and you do.
Well, thank you.
Back to this podcast. You know, in this episode, we are going to Grape Gab about Sauvignon Blanc today.
I know, Steph. I mean, we've been doing this almost 4 years, and we have never truly covered Sauvignon Blanc, and it's time to give the grape its due and the spotlight. Let's start with what's in your glass.
Okay, so I am giving New Zealand the spotlight. I have the Carrick 2015 Sauvignon Blanc, and if you're not familiar with that producer, Carrick is in Central Otago, so that's the South Island of New Zealand. I haven't visited, but I did get to have some when I was in New Zealand. This is an outstanding wine, and I did buy it online. I like it because it's got that classic lime, some herbaceousness, and some tropical fruits, kind of, you know, passion fruit. It also has maybe like, I got a little bit of hay, kind of like,
Hey.
Hey there. Are you talking to me?
Hey.
But yeah, really pretty, like, you know, some kind of green peas, and just fresh and really clean. Nice. I like it a lot.
I like you said green pea and not the pea de chat or the cat pea.
Right. No cat pea. And not so much gooseberries. I have had gooseberries and I don't really like them. And so, you know, I think when I try and associate that with a wine I do like, sometimes it doesn't hit.
I understand.
You know, but yeah. What are you drinking?
So once again, I failed our listeners in trying to put Sauvignon Blanc in the spotlight in searching around all the bottles on the floor and around the house during the remodel. I realized I have not a single bottle of straight up Sauvignon Blanc in the house. I probably drank it all during the summer.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I made this pumpkin pie with this French butter. Why don't we open this 2009 Chateau Rieussec Sauterne? There is 12% Sauvignon Blanc in this wine, which is, the wine is, of course, mostly Semillon. And you can go back and look at September's Grape Gab because we talk about it. But this is, believe it or not, all the Sauvignon Blanc I have in my house. So much for the spotlight, but here we go. So what... Yeah.
I think, Val, I know why you don't have Sauvignon Blanc in your house, because your John is not a huge fan of Sauvignon Blanc.
True that. He is not a huge fan of Sauvignon Blanc. In fact, he dislikes it. I think the acid is a lot. He's got one of those sensitive palates, and he can't do a lot of those really acidic wines. I used to love them, but, you know, I am protecting my teeth enamel, and I've gravitated toward a lot of reds, and I've gone back to Chardonnay. I used to be the Sauvignon Blanc girl because I read a wine blog once back about almost 10 years ago where somebody said, you know, Chardonnay is that buxom woman that gets your attention immediately, but Sauvignon Blanc is the woman you want to sit down and have a conversation with. And I'm like, oh, I'm so Sauvignon Blanc. So Sauvignon Blanc. But I'm in love with the Chardonnays, and all the white wines I have in the house are either Chardonnay or a Chenin or something like that. But we had this lovely dessert wine, and I broke it out with the pumpkin pie. Great pairing. through the holidays. Just saying.
Just saying.
Yes.
All right.
Let's get into it.
Sauvignon Blanc. It is the aromatic white grape made famous by the stylish classic wines from Sancerre and the fun 1980s flavor eruption from New Zealand. So I think I picked the perfect wine to represent today. And New Zealand really is what seems to be the ubiquitous, world's most popular, favorite white wine these days. It just seems to be the trend right now. All the restaurants have it by the glass. All your friends are drinking it. Everybody is drinking New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. But in all seriousness, though, Sauvignon Blanc has beauty, structure, complexity, like Val's telling you, somebody you want to have a long conversation with. Mm-hmm. And it has the ability to arouse and really catch your eye, or make you kind of stop and think, and maybe even in the case of Val's husband, stop and think, I don't like this, but I think that this is very distinctive. It's a talkative grape, and it takes on a sense of place, even a bold identity, and yet can be submissive to the winemaker, so it changes even in the winemaker's hands. But you can definitely say when you're blind tasting Sauvignon Blancs where they're coming from.
Yes, and thank you to the examiner for putting it on the exam, because I'm always happy to get a Sauvignon Blanc, especially the New Zealand one that comes right out of the glass. And I have to say it's one of the more food-friendly grapes. I used to have this thing for a bonefish grill, bang bang shrimp, and whatever New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc was on the menu at the time. And then I got my girlfriend started on that when I was in North Carolina. And you guys know who you are. You know who the bang bang shrimp and the Sauvignon Blanc. You remember that. But it is such a food-friendly wine when it comes to foods with a lot of acidity for people who like vegetables, salads, pastas with vinaigrettes. This is it is a summer wine. And we've had a few that I've been able to pour here that John was like, hey, yeah, it's pretty good. But blended or alone, it is a cool freaking grape. And we are so sorry that it took us 190 episodes to get some change for the Sauvignon Clue Bus and ride.
And it's December when everybody's like drinking, Chardonnays and more like full-bodied whites, and
bubbly.
Some people strictly drinking red, or bubbly or something. But we're like, hey, let's talk about Sauvignon Blanc because we need to. And have you ever heard it by a different name? Mm-hmm. Different countries might call it different things. Maybe even in California, you may have seen it called Fumé Blanc or a Sauvignon Muscat. Mm-hmm. And in France, they call it Blanc Fumé or Puy Fumé, Punachon, Syrah, Sauvignon Jaune, or Jantan Amarantin. In Italy, they do call it Sauvignon. In Austria, though, they call it Muscat Silvaner. And in Germany, they call it Muscat Silvaner, or they call it Feigentraube. That's too funny. I wish you guys could see us right now doing our pronunciations, because I actually put my whole body into it. And then Slovenia also calls it Muscat Silvaner. And so it is, you will see it named different things. And I think, commonly people will see California Fumé Blanc on the label and not know that it's actually Sauvignon Blanc. So that's just some FYI, and that's all in the blog for you to take a peek at all that goodness.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be a lot of goodness in the blog because we do link up a lot of references and videos and wonderful things that will really kind of enhance the dimensions of this conversation that you're getting in your ears right now. Sauvignon comes from the word sauvage, which means wild in French, and that's going to be a recurring theme throughout this episode. So it is the wild, white grape, and the vine itself, which is ridiculously hard to control and begs to be grafted onto lower vigor rootstocks with aggressive canopy management. Thank you, ma'am. May I have another? But that said, wine grapes, I told you we're going there. That said, wine grapes also cites Lauvignac's 2001 mentioning of a place in the Béarn of Gallo-Roman origins named Sauvignon. It's tucked away in the Pyrenees, and it is a place, I looked it up, you can go there. There are 195 TripAdvisor user reviews, just so you know.
Whoa.
I know. But
good research.
But like Steph mentioned, we always kind of return to the Loire when we think of Sauvignon Blanc. Some people think of the Southwest France area, but it is thought to have originated in the Loire. And you can peep our original regional wrap on this. And according to trusted DNA analysis and the fact that there are more clonal variations, according to Foundation Plant Services in 2010, and perhaps maybe it was there also that it was first mentioned in the 16th century. I don't know, King, was it Henry III, Henry IV? One of those kings were still around when this was mentioned. This is where it was known as Fie or Fier, but southwestern France, Bordeaux, was also in the running for the grape's origins, and thanks grapesestry.com, I guess.
Shouldn't there be one? I don't know.
There should be. Yeah, it's called UC Davis.
That's right. But yeah, so either way, Sauvignon Blanc's roots are definitely in France. That's the point. And the wines from the Loire Valley are unmatched by anywhere else in the world. Once you start tasting your way through Sauvignon Blancs, you will agree. But so where specifically in the Loire are we talking about? Well, I mentioned it early in the intro, Sancerre, Pouilly-Fumé, Menthue-Salon, Rouilly, and Cancy and Touraine, where you can still buy wines actually with Fie, what Val was just talking about on the label, and where some consider this a direct ancestor of Sauvignon Blanc. So just like we were saying, it's kind of cool that I think that's the geekiest, funnest thing, almost like a game with yourself when you're a cork dork, is that when you see the name of a grape in a different language or called something different in a different country, and you know what it is, it feels almost kind of like you're playing a game with yourself. So that's one of the things I think we're hoping that our listeners, are going to be learning from this show. But all of these cool places in the Loire, they also make different styles of Sauvignon Blanc, sparkling, dessert wines, dry wines. Sauvignon Blanc isn't the same everywhere. It's not called the same even in the country of France, and it doesn't appear the same way. Might be in a different shaped bottle and be sparkling.
And I know we do talk about France as the mothership calling us home in the wine studies world. That's where we all begin. But before we move on to the rest of the world, because it is a big deal in many other parts of the world, we should mention that the grape itself is a cross between Traminer or Sauvignon Blanc from Jura, and nobody really knows. Again, thanks 23 Grapes and me, because nobody knows who's the daddy. But we do know that it is the grape daddy or mommy of Cabernet Sauvignon. Many of you know that. It inherited that whole pyrazine thing that Steph's going to talk about later from the Sauvignon Blanc. But if grapes were to sit down and fight at the holiday dinner table like people, Sauvignon Blanc would probably be chiding Chenin Blanc or taunting Trousseau about its dating life. Over the mashed potatoes, perhaps. It may be throwing green bean casserole at half-siblings, because why not? Gruner Veltliner and Verdejo, or flicking peas at Petit Manseng or Petit Meslier, which is also grown in Champagne. They're all relatives, and there's also the distant relative Semillon, which may show up to grape family dinner, but the exact relationship is still not known outside the relationship of the Semillon dominating the Sauvignon in my glass of Sauterne right now. However, Steph, where else can we find it in the world where Sauvignon Blanc does dominate?
Or should we say, where can't we find it? Because that might be a much shorter list, and we don't want to keep everybody here for a 2-hour episode. Sauvignon Blanc is grown all over the place, and please do not criticize us for not mentioning every single place. So we're just kind of going to...
We'll do it. Yeah. We'll list them all.
It's just you watch out if you want us to do that. We will.
We will.
That's just going to piss everybody off. Anyway, where else in France? Because it's not just the Loire and Bordeaux. It's also up in Burgundy, Saint-Brie, and down in the Languedoc, and around Europe. I mentioned earlier Italy, because that's up there in the northeast. They're growing Sauvignon Blanc. Also in Spain's Rueda. Austria, I mentioned earlier. They grow it in Styria. The USA, of course. California grows Sauvignon Blanc, but also Washington does a great job too. So look there. And then we did have an episode on Israeli wines not long ago. Just 10 years ago, Sauvignon Blanc comprised the majority of white wine grape plantings. And then we also should be heading down to the Southern Hemisphere and talk about who's growing it there. Chile, South Africa, Australia's cooler areas, and of course New Zealand, and especially Marlborough. I won't say that this Central Otago one isn't so awesome, but all over New Zealand, and then also some other countries maybe you're not thinking of: Romania, Slovenia, Moldova, and Turkey. And speaking of Turkey, well, we were Twitter chatting a little bit with Andrea from Parmu Wine Ventures, Lemieux Andrea on Twitter. We were actually talking about the Semillon episode, which she loved. And so I just kind of threw it out there because she said, hey, Semillon's big in Turkey. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that, because I was looking at the Turkey website, didn't really see a lot of it. But she did actually just release a blog post about great wines in Istanbul as well. But I kind of threw it out there. So, well, what about Sauvignon Blanc? We're getting ready to record that episode. And she says it is hugely popular in Turkey, particularly in the Thracian and Aegean growing regions. It's probably the second or third most popular white grape here. I look forward to the new cast. Well, thank you, Andrea, because we look forward to hearing your feedback on this and hearing more about Turkish wines in the future. Hint, hint. Totally appreciate that. For all of you who are waiting to find out, how do we describe Sauvignon Blanc in the glass, with or without its common blending partners, like the Semillon that Val has, or Muscadel, there's a lot of times where it's described depending on where it's grown, but we're going to kind of give it sort of a general idea here. It shows up in the glass like herbaceousness, grassiness, and that's a lot of these green characteristics, whether it's green peppers or jalapeno, a lot of these are that pyrazine compound that Val mentioned earlier and is related to the Cabernet Sauvignon also. And the prominent acidity is really one of the things that makes it so distinctive. But remember, some regions bring their own signatures, from flinty smoky silex in the Loire to the oak treatment in California. It can be so different from place to place, or like oak treatment, that's what the winemaker is doing, right? So, and then the fruits, some people really think that the lime, like the lime that's coming through in the wine I'm having, can be very characteristic for New Zealand. But lemon, lime, citrus like that, and then all other stone fruits and tree fruits. It's a delicious wine in that it has fruit and acid and then herbaceousness. Again, it can have sometimes, people call minerality. I really try to catch myself from saying that because people still don't really... I'm not even going to go into that. I am so not going into that. You can leave that in the show, Val.
All right.
But there's so much more to Sauvignon, Val.
There is. And, we were talking about blending partners earlier. And you remember when we did our Israel episode, we had it blended with Viognier, Muscat, and Chardonnay.
Totally.
It totally gets along in other parts of the world, in Greece and Rueda and other parts of the world where they blend it. So alone or blended... As with many other grapes, we have to mention that Sauvignon isn't just straight up Blanc, right? It has mutations. There are many other grapes that have mutations in different colors, and this is no different. They include the Gris or the gray, so there'd be Sauvignon Gris, or Sauvignon Rose, which is pink, or Sauvignon Rouge, which is red. And talk about a hashtag W25 challenge, because I actually found a Fille Gris Touraine Blanc. So this would be one of the color, the gray grape, and it's actually a pink skin grape, kind of like Pinot Gris. Remember, Pinot Gris is not a white grape. Right. It's a pink skin bluish grape. Well, this also has that kind of pinkish bluish look to it. When I was a kid, we called the sunset sky blue pink, and that's what it reminds me of. But it's also believed to be this like long original ancestor, like the original Sauvignon. So it's kind of interesting to read a little bit about that. We'll link up some descriptions for that. And then I was going to send in the clones, but you don't want me to sing. But clones, we got those too. So we got the mutations we just talked about. Now we're going to talk about clones. And we are going to talk about, in detail, listen up, nearly a dozen clones on this prolific grape. You ready? because we're not doing that, because you can read all about them if you want to see who is growing what where, like the original one that Chateau d'Yquem uses that was actually first documented in 1966. The history behind this is, for cork dorks, absolutely fascinating. So we will link up that. It's a little bit of an old PDF, so there are probably more clones now, but I think you guys will find that fascinating if you're really into the whole grape ampligraphic stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's why we have so many links in the blog so that people can go on further and do more studying. But if you're looking for just a few factoids, I'm going to throw a couple of things at you guys. You don't necessarily think of Sauvignon Blanc as a very expensive type of wine. However, I did find that the most expensive Sauvignon Blanc in the world is Screaming Eagles Sauvignon Blanc. I still can't believe it. But yeah, it ranges right around $4,000 a bottle. It is more expensive than their red, and that's because it's in such limited quantities. So that's kind of crazy. And then the other kind of thing I thought is cool is that Sauvignon Blanc traditionally is made to be consumed right away. So it's supposed to be consumed in its youth. It's a drink now. Yet, there are some age-worthy styles, and you may have had one. Val and I were kind of discussing this before we started recording, but there's one that I have here linked up in the blog for you guys. Chateau Cuan-Lurton Blanc, recommended to age 10 to 15 years. So something to look out for if that's your kind of thing. And then lastly, where would you go to learn the most? Where, as in a place, not as in a website, to sit and learn the most you can about Sauvignon Blanc?
Well, it's not our blog, Steph, so.
Right. Because I said no websites or anything like that. So, where would you go and sit and take some seminars and learn about it? Well, January 28th through the 30th of 2019 is Sauvignon 2019. That is a conference, a few days that you would learn the most from masters of wine, from growers, from, all sorts of people. And we have the link in here if you so choose to check it out, because Val and I were basically going, whoa, that looks so cool.
I know. It's in Marlborough, New Zealand. We suspect that it's the evolution of something that was once called the Sauvignon Congress. But yeah, Congress actually does something. Go figure. Okay.
Oh, that's good. That's good. But now we just have a bunch of resources like usual and some other fun finds if you guys are interested in poking around. Check all of that out.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on this YouTube video of Ms. Jane from 10 years ago.
Oh my gosh. You guys, go watch the video of Miss Jane. Jane Nichols, seriously.
It'll make you love her even more. I think she wants these videos buried. I don't know, but I think she is just a natural for television, and why there is not a TV show based on the bubbly professor with the sexy, sultry Jane, I have no clue, but it's beautiful. I think it's really nice.
And it's like 2 minutes of her talking about Sauvignon Blanc, and it's adorable.
It is adorable. And so we're going to link up all kinds of goodies for you guys. So that's one of the things that we like to do on the blog that we didn't start out doing when we started the podcast, but we can't help ourselves. And we also can't help give a shout out to our show sponsor, who is Weekly Tasting from Wines Till Sold Out. And as of this recording, they have 4 Sauvignon Blancs from 4 different countries, all under $15. From the United States, they have the Liparita, Napa Valley Sauvignon Blanc from St. Helena. From France, the Domaine Beauséjour Les Silex, Touraine. Loire Valley, Argentina, Familia Scotti Gran Delirio Sauvignon Blanc from the Mendoza area. And from Chile, I think it's Matatic EQ.
Sounds good.
Coastal Sauvignon Blanc from Casablanca Valley. So just a little tasting of northern and southern hemisphere Sauvignon Blancs at your disposal, all under $15.
Yeah, so that's what WTSO really has to offer. Weekly tasting sometimes put these things together, but this is actually what WTSO has. If you don't see it on their website, tell them that we sent you and that's what you're looking for. Otherwise, just go to your listener page, weeklytasting.com/W25. Sign up, get started, poke around. It's so fun just to browse even, what they've got going in. Check out their social sites. That's fun too. We have it on our website if you don't remember. Just go to wine25.com.
Yep. And next up, Patreon love. We've got a lot of that. And first off, our Reserva Superior supporter, Robin from Girls Gone Grape. Our Reserva supporter, Auntie in Georgia, Tenacious Tasters, Jeff E. from the hilarious 2-time award-winning We Like Drinking podcast, Sebastian of Sassy Italy Tours, Dave and Lisa in Illinois, Anne-Marie in Virginia, Lynn of Savor the Harvest blog, and Sharon in Florida.
And it's not 5 o'clock and we don't care, listeners. Meg in South Dakota, and I have a special shout out to Meg because I am doing a fundraiser for my birthday. Meg made a donation and I am so grateful, Meg. Thank you so much. To Clay in Arizona, who also made a donation. I just really appreciate everybody doing that for me. And in California, John, Andrew, Iswani, and Kristen, Chantel in Ontario, Canada, Mary Lou in Pennsylvania, Kathy in Georgia, Chris, Janet, and Diane in Colorado, Steve and Renee in Illinois. Renee, I will see you very soon. Kathy in Tennessee, Sean in Ohio, Ashley and Sarah in North Carolina, and our Tastemaker listeners, David in Scotland, Carol in Kentucky, Karen in California, Chip and Katie in Pennsylvania, Serena in New York, Annie in Colorado, and Danielle. And go to wine25.com and click on support to show your support and find more details.
And between our weekly episodes, you can find goodies on our website, wine25.com, or find us on the social spaces at wine25. So until next week, everybody, cheers!
Thank you for listening to the Wine to 5 podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.